cheering in 2000. Officially, I started cheering in 2016. I came back for Pro Spirits Chrome team for a little bit, and we won instead. I never got a jacket.
Yeah.
I was so happy, right? I stopped. I was like, nope. I came back, did my thing, stopped. But around then was the same time I heard the funniest term come out of cheerleading to date, which is cheer-lebrity. That to me is hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm not scoffing at it. I just think that it's very interesting.
Yeah.
The sport's grown so much to now we've got cheer-lebrities, right? And I'm, it's interesting to me just to be talking about right now. Like, how would you describe your life as a cheer-lebrity?
So I'll start it off with I don't portray myself as a cheer-lebrity.
What's the normal portrayal of a cheer-lebrity?
Definitely a big following. That's what when you think of cheer-lebrity, you think of someone with a lot of followers. What was your question again?
No, it's just how would you describe your life as a cheer-lebrity?
Okay, so I won't describe my life because I'll say whenever I was in all-star cheerleading, when I was around like my 13, 14, 15, that's when I had like a pretty big following. And that was cool. You would get, I would constantly be stopped for pictures at competitions. I remember there was one competition where I couldn't walk 5 feet with someone asking to take a picture, which is a cool feeling. So pretty much just pictures. It's cool because since social media is such a big thing now, you get a lot of not necessarily endorsements, but you get to collab with a lot of organizations and companies and to promote their products and to pay as well. I'm actually friends with people who are on the show Cheer, and I knew them prior to them getting big, and that's been really interesting to see because of how big and popular the show was, and to see their following grow and their popularity as well. Yeah, I mean it's a cool thing. It's like they're not celebrities, but they're cheer-lebrities, I guess.
That's what makes it funny to me because you think of a celebrity and they're like universally known.
Yeah.
You walk into this mall and everybody
would know them.
Either know or know of you. They may not know exactly what you do, they may know of you. Yeah. And it's weird that kind of going to competition sometimes and have people want to take pictures with my young people at home.
Yeah.
They want to take a picture with them. I'm like, that's crazy, right? But I guess, do you think cheer-lebrities have a responsibility to those younger followers, and what do you think their responsibility is?
Well, yes and no. For instance, Gabby Butler. She is fantastic. Fantastic. She necessarily has a responsibility for younger athletes because she's so talented and she's such a genuine person. She has, I would say, not necessarily a responsibility, but she can't necessarily post her social life or some things or how she normally is because of her younger following, because she is such a big influencer, keyword influencer, as well as other cheerleaders. And so I think everyone has a responsibility to spread positivity, but since these cheerlebrities have such a big following, yes, these younger kids look up at them, but in the same light, they're adults. They're in their 20s, some of them. It's not necessarily their responsibility for someone else's kid, but then you have Ryan Cummings and Kinley Pope who are on Cheer Extreme, I wouldn't say they have necessarily a responsibility, but there are definitely a lot of kids who look up to them and they know that, and so that's kind of where they have to draw the line on certain things that they post or certain things that they portray themselves as, but they all do a great job of it. I was just naming those because they're some of the biggest names in the industry, but I would definitely say, yeah, everyone's responsibility to just portray positivity, things like that.
You mentioned earlier that social media was the worst part about the industry, right? So kind of diving into that a little bit more, do you ever feel pressure on social media, and how do you handle that pressure?
There have been times, yes, that my name has popped up on social media, and I've had hate pages before.
Whole pages?
Whole pages just like hate Harrison. They're hate, and I'm not the only one. It happens to everyone. It's hard to see that, mainly because I defend myself when someone is speaking badly about me. I want to defend myself, but at the end of the day, you have to remember that they're Twitter trolls and that they're insecure with themselves and they have nothing better to do, because I'm not over here tweeting bad about someone or talking mess about someone on social media, because I'm happy with myself, and other people are doing that because they're unhappy with themselves. And so that's what I just try to remember, is that you look silly if you try to go argue back with someone on social media, because at the end of the day, it's not going to get anywhere, and it's not face to face. So that right there doesn't make it valid.
Now, what about image pressure and all? Because I know that happens more so for females and women on social media, but I can't imagine somebody who has the attention that you have not think about that. You know, if you're posting on your house or take pictures of people, is that image side of it just as pressing as maybe just the backlash or the dark side of social media?
Sometimes, yes. Since I'm in college and I just turned 21, I do have to watch a little bit of what I post. I can't go out and act like this crazy man on social media. So overall, no. You just live your life, and then if people choose not to like it, then that's on them. And overall image, no, I don't really worry about it too much, and I don't think other people do. You just live your life, and if people don't like it, then there's an unfollow button.
What has been your most satisfying victory in a competition? Maybe you made a skill, maybe you hit a stunt. But out of your whole career, what has been the most satisfying victory?
Most satisfying victory, I would probably say winning grand in Daytona at College Nationals my freshman year. So that whole year, I was the only freshman on the team, only male freshman. There's one other female, and everyone else had been on the team with each other prior to that. And everyone had been on the college team and had competed in Daytona prior to that. So there's 20 people on the mat whenever you compete, and we had around 30 people. So I had to beat out 4 or 5 guys for a spot, and so that was super stressful going into that as a freshman. Thankfully, I just trusted my training. I got on the mat, and then it was just the coolest experience. It was my first time competing in Daytona, Florida, on the band shell. We hit a great routine, and just coming out on top my first year in college was probably the coolest experience ever.
So conversely, what's been the worst defeat?
Ooh, there's been a lot. There's been more defeats than there have been wins. Ooh, anytime I've been in deduction in a competition, that's been the worst defeat.
That you had the deduction?
Myself.
Okay.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, that's all I can control is myself, and I'm super hard on myself whenever I mess up, and so I would say any defeat is when I'm a deduction and when I contribute to the losing.
So speak to that real quick, because I've watched practice at Prodigy a little bit, and hitting zero is a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. Go kind of speak to the work that it takes to hit zero, and maybe what that means for people who don't know what that means.
We practice months on months just to compete a 2-minute and 30-second routine, and it's hard. There's a lot of aspects that go into it. Nowadays hitting zero isn't all it takes. It's the technique. It's how solid your stunts are. Did the basis feet move? Were your feet together in your back handsprings? There's so many aspects that go into just hitting zero. It's hard. It's cardio. You tumble, you jump, you do basket tosses, you pyramid, you dance, you do it all, and so it's not as easy as it sounds, and it takes months and months and months of preparation and hard work and dedication. If you don't have any of those things, then good luck. It's tough. So hitting zero is very rewarding, but it takes practice 2 to 3 times a week for 52 weeks a year. It's hard, but it's rewarding, and it just takes a lot of work for sure.
What do you think is the biggest misconception about cheerleaders, and maybe male cheerleaders in particular?
Oh, definitely people think cheerleading is what you see on the sidelines, like go fight, win. And while in the same light it is for high school, people, club cheer, also known as All-Star, doesn't get quite the recognition that it should, because since football and basketball and soccer is so universal, it's the same everywhere you go. Whereas cheerleading, you have college cheerleading, you have all-star cheerleading, you have high school cheerleading, you have pee-wee and prep, you have all of these different kinds, so it doesn't really get spotlighted on. If people could come to an all-star practice, they would understand the sport. And I think just the biggest misconception of cheerleading is that it's not a sport, when it 100% is. It's just as athletically challenging as any other sport. You have to be talented, you have to be dedicated. You know, it's not just something anyone can do. And so I think that's probably the biggest misconception of the sport.
So to piggyback off of that, you know, not everything is a real sport. It's looked at as a sport, you know, but not everybody can like universally understand that just based on what they see, right? Because you haven't gone through it, you don't know the physicality it takes to hit a pyramid.
No,
you don't know the physicality it takes to do a partner stunt, or go from a tumbling section to a jump section, back to a stunt section, to all these moving parts, right? So do you think that cheerleading is more of a mental game or a physical game, and why?
Yeah, well, mental for sure. In the fact that you got to be mentally tough, and when you're learning, you're just gonna have to accept that you're gonna fail, and you're gonna have to accept that you're not always gonna have a good day, and you know, and that's from a mental side of it. Physical side of it is extremely tough, but if you are able, you know, our ex-basketball coach at Tech said it's 4 to 1. It's 4 mental, 1% physical. If you are able to be mentally strong, and because your body can do more than what you think it can, and so I think if you are able to have a strong mental mindset, then the physical is just right behind that, and it just all evens out.